the HOA Karen who thought she owned my private ranch road *. What happens when an entitled HOA board president decides your private property is actually a public shortcut? Well, she's about to find out why you don't mess with a rancher who's had enough. Trust me, the ending will leave you speechless. But before we get there, let me take you back to where this nightmare began. So, let me paint you a picture. I own a 60-acre ranch in rural Texas that's been in my family for 3 generations. My grandfather bought this land back in the 1960s, and when he passed, it came to me. This place isn't just property, it's my heritage, my memories, and my home. Now, about 5 years ago, a new subdivision started going up on the adjacent property, and let me tell you, when I first heard about it, my stomach dropped. I knew exactly what was coming. These weren't country folks. These were city people looking for their rustic escape, without actually wanting to deal with real ranch life. The development company built about 40 homes, each one more cookie-cutter than the last. And of course, they formed an HOA because apparently, you can't have suburban paradise without someone telling you what color your mailbox can be, right? For the first 6 months, everything was relatively quiet. Sure, I got a few complaints about my rooster crowing at dawn and the smell from my cattle pastures, but nothing I couldn't handle with a polite conversation. That was until she moved in. Her name was Patricia, mid-50s, blonde highlights that screamed "I want to speak to your manager," and an attitude that could curdle milk at 20 paces. Within 3 months of moving into the neighborhood, she'd gotten herself elected as HOA president. And that's when my real problems began. You see, there's a private road that runs through my property. It's a dirt path, about a quarter-mile long, that connects to the main county road. My grandfather built it in 1967, and we've maintained it ever since. It's on my deed. It's my property. There are even signs posted every 100 feet that say "Private road, no trespassing." But here's where it gets interesting. This private road, if you use it, shaves about 7 minutes off the drive to the nearest grocery store compared to going the official way, through the subdivision streets and around the long way. 7 minutes. Then Patricia decided that 7 minutes was worth more than respecting private property. It started small. I'd see her white Mercedes SUV kicking up dust on my road once or twice a week. At first I thought maybe she was lost or made a wrong turn. I even waved at her the first time, trying to be neighborly. But then it became daily, then twice daily. Then she started telling her neighbors about the shortcut. Within a month, I had 15 to 20 cars a day using my private road like it was some kind of public highway. They drove fast, way too fast for a dirt road near livestock. They threw trash out their windows. One guy even hit one of my fence posts and just drove off. But Patricia, she was the worst. She acted like she owed WNED my road. I tried being reasonable first. I really did. I walked over to her house one Saturday morning, knocked on her door, and politely explained that the road was private property and asked her to please use the proper subdivision exits. You know what she said to me? She looked me dead in the eye and said, "Well, it's not like you're using it for anything important. Besides, in Texas, if we use it long enough, it becomes a public easement through adverse possession." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This woman had done just enough Google research to be dangerous and completely wrong. I went home and immediately called my property attorney, a guy named Jim who'd handled my family's legal matters for 20 years. He laughed when I told him what Patricia said. "She's half right about adverse possession," Jim explained. "But she needs continuous, open, and hostile use for 10 years in Texas, and it has to be without your permission. Since you've told her to stop, and since you have clear posted signs, she's got no legal leg to stand on." That made me feel better, but it didn't solve my problem. So I tried again. I sent a certified letter to Patricia and copied all the residents who I'd seen using my road. The letter was polite but firm. "This is private property. Please cease using this road immediately or legal action will follow." Patricia's response: she showed up at my door with 3 other board members and a printed-out petition signed by 37 homeowners, demanding that I grant a permanent easement for community use of my road. She actually said it would be the neighborly thing to do. I told them absolutely not, and that if the trespassing didn't stop, I'd be forced to take action. Patricia just smiled, that condescending smile that entitled people perfect over years of getting their way, and said, "We'll see about that." Things got worse, way worse. Not only did the traffic not stop, it increased. It was like Patricia had made it her personal mission to prove I couldn't stop them. Then came the incident that changed everything. I was moving cattle from one pasture to another, something I do regularly. It involves opening gates and slowly herding about 30 head of cattle across my property, including across that private road. I had my ranch hand, Miguel, stationed at one end with his truck and hazards on, and I was at the other end on my horse. It should have taken 15 minutes. Tops. Patricia came flying down that road in her Mercedes going at least 40 miles per hour. She saw Miguel's truck, saw me on my horse, saw the cattle, and instead of stopping like any reasonable person, she laid on her horn and tried to squeeze past. She spooked my entire herd. Cattle went everywhere. One heifer crashed through a fence and injured her leg. Another ran into the woods, and it took us 4 hours to find her. The chaos was unbelievable. And Patricia, she stopped long enough to roll down her window and yell, "Maybe you shouldn't be blocking the road during rush hour." Then she drove off. That was it. I was done being nice. I called Jim that same day and we started planning. He pulled up all my property records, the original surveys, every piece of documentation we had. Everything confirmed what I already knew. This was 100% my private road on my private property. Jim drafted a legal cease and desist that went to every single homeowner who'd been using the road. He also sent a special one to Patricia, informing her that she was being held personally liable for the injured heifer's veterinary bills and property damage. But here's the thing. I knew the legal letters wouldn't stop her. People like Patricia don't respond to reason. They respond to consequences, so I came up with a plan. A completely legal, absolutely justified plan that would solve this problem once and for all. I ordered custom steel barriers. Not just any barriers, heavy-duty commercial-grade steel security barriers that would block vehicle access but could be removed when I needed to use the road myself. I also installed a heavy-duty chain and lock system. But I didn't stop there. The barriers were installed on a Friday night. Professional job, cemented into place, absolutely immovable without the key I kept. The installation crew also put up brand new, larger signs, "Private property, no trespassing, violators will be prosecuted." I also had security cameras installed covering both ends of the road. Everything was documented. Everything was legal. Everything was on my property. Monday morning came and I wish I had popcorn ready because the show was spectacular. My cameras caught it all, car after car approaching the barrier, confused, having to turn around and take the long way. Some people accepted it and drove off. Others sat there for a minute, probably checking their GPS to make sure they weren't crazy. But Patricia's reaction was priceless. She pulled up to that barrier at 7:23 a.m., and I watched on my camera feed as she sat in her car for a full minute, clearly furious. Then she got out, walked up to the barrier and actually tried to move it, like this 150-pound woman was going to budge a steel barrier cemented into the ground. When that didn't work, she took out her phone and took pictures. Then she called someone, I'm guessing her lawyer. Within 3 hours, I got a phone call from the HOA's attorney, very professional, very polite, asking if there was any way we could work something out. I told him the same thing I told Patricia from day one. It's private property, always has been, always will be. No easement, no access, end of discussion. He tried the whole adverse possession argument again, and I had Jim conference into the call to explain exactly why that wouldn't work. The HOA lawyer got quiet real fast, but Patricia wasn't done. Oh no, she filed a complaint with the county, claiming I was blocking a public road. The county sent someone out to investigate, looked at my property records, looked at my grandfather's original deed from 1967, and basically told Patricia she was wasting everyone's time. We tried to file a lawsuit against me for restricting access and creating a hostile neighborhood environment. Her lawyer dropped her as a client 2 weeks later when he realized she had absolutely no case. The HOA even held an emergency meeting where Patricia tried to get the board to sue me on behalf of the community. According to my neighbor, Carol, who actually became a friend through all this, the meeting was 3 hours of Patricia ranting while everyone else just wanted to go home. The board voted 4-1 against taking any legal action. Patricia was the only yes vote. Here's where it gets even better. Remember those vet bills for my injured heifer? Patricia ignored them, so Jim filed a civil suit. And we won a judgment of $3,200 for vet bills and property damage. When Patricia still didn't pay, we put a lien on her house. Suddenly she was very interested in settling, but the absolute best part, about 6 months after the barriers went up, Patricia's house went on the market. Turns out, without that convenient shortcut, her property was a lot less desirable, and with a civil judgment attached to her name in the community, people knew exactly who they'd be living near. She sold at a loss and moved to a condo in Austin. I heard through the grapevine that even there she got kicked off the condo board within a year for being difficult. As for me, those barriers are still up. My road is peaceful. My cattle are safe. And every time I drive through and unlock those gates, I smile, thinking about that entitled look on Patricia's face when she realized she couldn't bully her way through this one. The whole subdivision has been quieter since she left. Turns out, most people are actually reasonable when they're not being riled up by someone with a persecution complex and too much free time. So that's the story of how an HOA Karen learned that private property actually means private. The lesson here: stand your ground, know your rights, and never let entitled people steamroll you just because they're loud and persistent. If you enjoyed this story of justified revenge, smash that like button and subscribe for more unbelievable real-life stories. Drop a comment below telling me about your crazy neighbor experiences. I read every single one. And remember, just because someone thinks they're entitled to something doesn't mean they actually are. Sometimes, people need steel barriers to understand the word no. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.